All right, everyone. Oh, everyone can hear me? Wonderful. So welcome to our current segment of the Black, Gold, and Green series, hosted by the Hixon Center for Sustainable Environmental Design here at Harvey Mudd College. My name is Lewis. I work here as a Sustainability Program Manager. For the sake of time, because I know that the Senator has come in from a tight schedule, and he will have to get out at a hard time of 6:45. So I'm going to spare no time really describing too much, but I just want to say that we're absolutely honored to have the Senator here. Hopefully we'll have some time for some questions before he gets out, but expect by 6:40 to wrap up, just to let you know, and he may not have time afterwards to really interact with folks as we've done with other speakers. So with that said, I want to say thank you to Senator de León for coming. We're very honored to have you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Lewis. I don't know if you can hear me up there. I want to make sure this level is working well. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with each and every one of you, and the students, the faculty, and the community members here at the Claremont Colleges, but specifically here at Harvey Mudd. As you may know, I am an alum from Pitzer College, right down the road, and I'm yes. So this is 1, 2, 3. How about that? Is that a little better? If not, what I'll do is I'll use the microphone that's here. Why don't you lend me that one right there? I can actually hear it right there. Thank you so much. How about this? What about, much better. It actually is much better. Thank you so very much with that. So it's an honor and pleasure to be here with each and every one of you. And what I'll do, if you don't mind, is I'll get into the content of the remarks, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible and perhaps open up for Q&A from the students as well as any faculty members. I think that the past couple of months have been jarring in more ways than we can count, between the president's attack on our judiciary and the torrent of mistruths, the alternative facts, and misinformation on every imaginable topic, from claims about crowd size to the absurd allegation that millions of people actually voted illegally in this past election, and to the false and incredibly irresponsible accusation that President Obama was responsible for wiretapping the Trump Tower, and the hateful and, quite frankly, un-American executive orders that portray immigrants and refugees as a threat to our nation. It's abundantly clear that our institutions and our values, including the bedrock principles like freedom of press and freedom of religion, separation of powers, and equality before the law, will be tested over the next 4 years unlike ever before in our history. The stakes are very high. So without a question, irrespective of where you are on the political spectrum, I don't believe that as Americans, as Californians, that we can afford to sit idle with what is happening today. Now, California is the Golden State, home to Hollywood and the Silicon Valley. We are the 6th largest economy in the world, and we are the economic engine that keeps America growing. In fact, we are 13% of the overall GDP of the United States. To put this in context, the largest economy in the world as a whole in the aggregate is the United States of America. Number 2 is China. Number 3 is Japan. Number 4 is Germany. Number 5 is, depending on the fluctuation of the sterling, it is the United Kingdom. And then number 6, it's a great state, your state, the state of California. Now, if you're remotely interested to round off the top 10, number 7, it is France. And number 8, it is Brazil. Number 9 is a nation that's been in the news quite a bit, and probably will be so for the foreseeable future. That is Russia. And number 10, it is Italy. So to put this in context, California's economy is larger than that of Vladimir Putin's Russia. That shows you the enormity of the state of California. So I'm very proud of our state, especially the values that make California the truest embodiment of the American dream, where people of all races, religions, and backgrounds can live in safety, attend good schools, access health care, breathe clean air, and contribute to one of the world's most powerful economies. Now, although Donald Trump may have won the presidency, he has not changed our values as a state. And the fact does remain that by a margin of 2-1, by 4 million votes, Californians rejected the politics fueled by resentment, by misogyny, as well as bigotry. And as a state, we will never appease those who threaten to undermine our economic prosperity or deprive our people of their fundamental human rights. We refuse to go back, to regress to the politics of scapegoating, preying on the religious, racial, and ethnic hostilities echoing the divisive days of Proposition 187, when dark forces refused children access to health care and education because of their immigration status. And more than ever, it's vital that we ensure that California continues to be America's beacon of hope, an exceptional example, especially in a very uncertain world, that we actually double down on lifting people up, and that we defend our economic progress as well as our shared values, and that we continue to be a world leader on workers' rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, voting rights, civil rights, environmental protections, climate action, and access to health care and public education for all individuals, irrespective of who you are and where you come from. And to those in this room, or perhaps your friends, your neighbors, your loved ones, your own family members, who've been bullied, who've been demeaned, who've been downsized, or told outright that they're dispensable just because they are different, this state, your state, will stand behind each and every one of you. Because California has always been a place where you can be whoever you are and become whoever you dream of being. And that's a principle which has always been bigger than partisanship or politics. In this state, we celebrate diversity. Whether your extraction is Irish, Welsh, German, French, Canadian, whether it is Mexican, Guatemalan, Chinese, Taiwanese, Korean, or Vietnamese, we celebrate diversity here. We don't deport it, we don't ban it, and we don't wall it off. That's not who we are as a great state. We welcome people of all walks of life because it's the American way. Because we believe that all women and all men are created equal, and they are in fact equal before the law. And we depend on the ingenuity, the work ethic, and the integrity of millions of people of every color and every creed from every corner of this earth. Because it's not just a matter of principle. It's also a matter of self-economic interests, that we strive to build on a society that will welcome anyone who wants to come and contribute and become Americans. But the reality is that our progress is in direct conflict with the new administration's vision for America on a whole variety of very critical issues, such as science. Here at Harvey Mudd, you're one of the best science schools in America. In California, we still believe in science. It's not an issue or debate or dialogue between evolution and creationism. The reality is this: California has some of the most far-reaching, progressive climate change policies, not in the nation or hemispherically, but in the world. Because we actually have demonstrated that you can decouple and delink carbon from GDP. What does that mean specifically? We're actually, in the aggregate, 28% less carbon intensive as a state. At the same time, we have grown our economy to become the 6th largest economy in the world, coming off the worst economic recession since 1929. We have the statistical facts and data. It's my hope that the Trump administration will actually look towards California and find value in what we do, the policies that we move in the state legislature that send the right market signals, that attract the necessary capital, that creates the technologies that helps us achieve our ambitious target goals. Reducing carbon, at the same time other criteria pollutants, whether it's NOx, SOx, or particulate matter 2.5. The number one reason for absenteeism in our public school system in California is due to asthma. And when our children don't have health care, and when a mother has to lose a whole day's of work and lose a day of pay by standing in the emergency room with her child because of the asthma attacks, and you know when you have bad days here in Claremont, the Basin area, you see all the pollution that's trapped. Now, we have actually made relative incredible gains in California with double or triple the population, double, triple the number of cars on our highways. At the same time, we actually have reduced our carbon consumption, at the same time, the pollution in California. We got much more work to do. There's no question about that. But we can't go back and we cannot regress. This is what we're talking about with regards to environmental protections, air quality, clean air, climate change action, making sure that we don't separate children from their mothers, mothers from their children, keeping health care intact for the 6.5 million Californians who benefit today by having access to the ACA, the Affordable Care Act of the Obama administration. Now, under a Democratic and Republican administration, going back to Richard Nixon, Richard Nixon, Republican. Gerald Ford, Republican. Jimmy Carter, Democrat. Ronald Reagan, Republican. George Herbert Walker Bush, Republican. Bill Clinton, Democrat. George W. Bush, Republican. Until recently, Barack Obama, Democrat. All of those presidents, Republicans and Democrats, have all authorized the California Clean Waiver Act. Now, we have strong belief that with Scott Pruitt at the helm of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that they're going to deny for the first time in the history California's Clean Waiver Act. We're ready for litigation. That's why I hired Eric Holder, the former top lawyer of the United States, the former Attorney General of the Department of Justice, to be our outside counsel, to help inform me so I can make the strategic and tactical decisions necessary to do everything within our power to protect our economic prosperity, to protect our values, and to protect the people of California when it comes to health care, when it comes to environmental protections, clean air, clean water, when it comes to climate action, and then again, keeping our families intact. We have created 500,000 jobs in the clean energy space in California. 500,000 new jobs in the most recent years in the renewable space. Wind, solar, energy efficiency, transportation, electrification, where we're going to transform this economy as well as the state within the next, not 5 or 10 years, but actually within the next 2 years, when we'll see charging stations that will be ubiquitous as gas stations throughout California. As you see a Chevron, a Valero, a Tesoro, ExxonMobil, an Arco gas station, where you see 76, we're going to see charging stations that will be ubiquitous throughout California. That will be transformative in getting people from point A to point B in lowering our tailpipe emissions of carbon and other criteria pollutants. So I just want to hold it right there. They'll give us maybe about a half hour of questions and answers right there. For me, it's a real honor, especially to come to a very prestigious school like Harvey. I want to thank you, Louis, very much for the invitation. And again, for me, it really is an honor. And irrespective of where you may lie on the political spectrum, and if you completely disagree with everything I have to say or some of it, that's fine. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have of me, and I'll do my very best to answer them for you. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor. Thank you.
All right. So we have until, what time is it right now? It's 6:17, and we have until 6:40 for questions before the senator has to go. So we'll open it up, and we'll see where we get to.
So could you describe in a little more detail how easy it will be for Pruitt to revoke the waiver, or can he do it without an executive order, or
it doesn't require an executive order or statutory change. Statutory change being an actual an affirmative decision by the Congress, the House of Representatives, as well as the Senate. It doesn't require an executive order. We have seen numerous executive orders on a whole variety of issues that the President has issued. Let me be very clear. A lot of these executive orders are over-glorified press releases. They are conveying what his desire is through the executive order. Some of them have not yet even come to fruition. I know they have rattled a lot of folks on a whole variety of issues, but they're over-glorified press releases, truth be told. As the head of the EPA administration, he could unilaterally do this through the regulatory framework. We believe, we believed he was going to do it last week. The New York Times had already signaled that they were close to unilaterally making the decision to revoke the California Clean Air Waiver Act. And by the way, where a lot of Trump supporters do live, some of the worst air quality exists. So when I fight for air quality, improved air quality, it's not just for Democrats or coastal districts or urban areas, Los Angeles or Bay Area. It's for everybody. Whether you're a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter, I'm fighting so you can breathe clean air into your lungs. So we believe that they were ready to actually make the decision. But I think some, at least legal, saneness, took over. And they pulled back. It was a big blow to the President and his team with the travel ban and with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals when they denied him that. And then just recently, I think sometime last week in Hawaii, another U.S. federal judge in a 2.0 version of the travel ban. So they didn't want to risk a third, defeat, an immediate defeat in the court. We believe that we had solid ground. They're probably trying to figure out right now how they can survive in a court with such an action. So we will be prepared.
There have been a lot of suggestions that the only way to move forward is through growth, but it's been very well demonstrated, I think, that growth is going to have to wind down at some time. Already we're hugely overpopulated. Do you have any thoughts about what to do about the population and growth element of sustainability?
Are you referring to population growth or economic growth?
Both.
Well, in terms of, it's a good point. I don't have any specific, data points with me right now, but in terms of population growth, it's my understanding that actually we have decreased a slight number. We had some growth from baby boomers, in retirement age, moving to Nevada and Arizona because it's less expensive to live in those areas right now. Immigration patterns to the United States, or specifically to California, are actually at a all-time low. To California. So in terms of growth patterns, I think we've been holding steady. I don't think we have any increase in ticks in the past 5 years. In terms of economic growth, we just left the worst economic recession since 1929. It was very difficult for California. We made some very difficult decisions, some draconian cuts that I regret. But unlike Washington, we don't have a printing press in the basement of the Capitol where they have the Treasury. You can run ongoing debt. All you have to do is lift your debt ceiling. We can't do that. By the Constitution, we have to have a balanced budget on an annual basis. Therefore, when you have to have that budget balanced on an annual basis and ready for the governor to sign, you have to make the decisions with what you got and what your priorities are. And they can be very tough. The economy has improved dramatically in California. Even with the Trump administration, we have to keep this economy moving. And I believe in the clean energy space that we can do so. Therefore, I believe that the policies that will be coming out of Washington will be a direct threat to the economic prosperity of the state.
The population issue that I was referring to are the estimates that in order to have a sustainable worldwide population, we would need 3 times the capacity of the Earth presently to handle the population that we have. I don't know what can be done about that locally, but nobody discusses.
Through the natural attrition rate, short of that, I'm not quite sure if you want to artificially accelerate that attrition rate. That'd be another decision altogether. That's several pay grades above my IQ level right there. Yes.
Thank you. All of the progress you've talked about is really incredible, but what is it that California has done that other states haven't, that's allowed all of this progress? And I'm thinking specifically of states like Ohio or West Virginia that unfortunately depend on coal and gas and stuff.
That's a very good question. I would say that the people of California, there's a lot of ingenuity here, an incredible work ethic, the spirit of innovation, creativity. We have national migrants from other parts of the country. We have international immigrants from other parts of the world. They bring an incredible vibrancy to the state. There's no state like California in the nation, in the world, period. I say this subjectively and biasly. I know there's other parts of the state that we can learn from as well, too, and from other parts of the world that they do certain things better than we do here in California. So we can learn from other parts of the world, too. But I do believe that the economic pain for those who live in West Virginia, in Kentucky, in parts of Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Michigan, I think the economic pain is real. There's no question about it. There's a whole variety of factors. Automation, it's not exclusive to trade, which has been portrayed during the national political campaign, or the issue of immigration. but I do believe the economic pain is real. You can measure it, you can quantify it. I do believe that irrespective of your political party, whether you're Democrat or Republican, I do believe that all Americans, irrespective of the hue of your skin, deserves a politician, deserves politicians who move forward very serious economic policies that helps improve the human condition for all individuals. Not for politicians to come into an environment and they smell, they sense fear, anxiety, panic, real economic insecurity, because the pain is real. You know, we had the worst economic recession since 1929 here in California, and we were disproportionately impacted by it. So I know what it is. I know what it is when you see family members because of the stress, and as a result, the divorce. And as a result of the divorce, they lost the house. And as a result of losing the house, they lost their kids through the divorce. The pain, the stress, sometimes the drug use to numb the pain, and sometimes alcoholism. And then you get someone who comes in and takes advantage of that opportunity and say, you're in the position that you're in because of those people. They're the ones who do that to you. That is incredibly unfair to those who are suffering. And I do believe that it doesn't make a difference, you're Democrat or Republican. All Americans, whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're a Bernie supporter, whether you're a Trump supporter, all Americans deserve politicians who move forward very serious economic policies. I do believe that the elected officials, the politicians from certain parts of the country have sold their constituents in those areas a bill of goods. It doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out that coal, the value of coal has plummeted quite dramatically, that domestic consumption is waning, that international consumption, even China right now, has cut back on both the export and import of coal. They're looking for other developing nations to purchase their product. It's not happening. So if it's not happening, why are you going to fight to your death to protect a fixed asset that is losing value incredibly so? So if I am a coal miner, and my father was a coal miner, and my father's father was a coal miner, then culturally it's embedded within my psyche, it's embedded within my DNA. That's how I pay for my mortgage, that's how I protect my family, that's how I put the roof over my kid's head. So any threat to the industry, I can completely understand. But I think it's the elected officials themselves who have put these communities in peril. They haven't stood up for coal miners. Perhaps they've stood up for coal owners. Two separate things there. And that's what we've done in California. We've seen that what the future is going to be like, or not just what the future is going to look like, we have forged the future by sending the right market signals. So we're putting people to work. So in the space of energy efficiency, whether it's double pane windows, whether it's window fenestration, whether it's insulation, whether it's sensor lighting, reducing your energy load, you reduce your energy load, you spend less money turning the lights on and off, you spend less money cooling the room, heating the room, you emit less carbon into the atmosphere, and you actually grow the economy, because these are jobs that are labor intensive. You're putting Americans to work on jobs that can be outsourced or offshore to Guangzhou, China, or elsewhere. So I would venture to say that, and I don't have any data on this, but I would venture to say that with a lot of the measures that I have moved forward, that as a result that have created economic growth and jobs that are tangible, that you can verify and quantify, that there's probably quite a few folks who've actually voted for Trump, who are actually installing double pane windows, insulation, sensor lights, what have you, et cetera. It's about moving this economy. And I think that in those parts of the country, I think political leadership has failed them quite dramatically.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does California have a plan, or do you think it's possible for them to have a plan to develop our own healthcare system here if the ACA is actually revoked or they put something horrible in its place? And do you think that California can have like a Medicare for all type of
That's a very good question.
system?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I've been asked that question on numerous occasions. What would happen if the Congress and the U.S. Senate actually support some measure, we don't know what type of measure, that will eviscerate the ACA? I don't use the words repeal and replace. Those are their words that they have paid money through qualitative research focus groups so it can resonate, because it sounds nice. We're going to repeal and we're going to replace. I call it eviscerate and destroy, If they eviscerate and decimate the ACA, we would lose at minimum about $20 billion in subsidies for those who have access to health care now through the ACA. Now, your question is, what happens if, in fact, that does come to fruition? It would be very difficult for us to backstop or backfill, if you will, the $20 billion. We would immediately go into a budget deficit because we invest in UCs and Cal States and community colleges and K through 12. When it comes to private institutions like the Claremont colleges and Stanford and Occidental, it's about the Cal grants that we provide. So it would be very difficult for us to do so. So the question is, could we create a Medicare system, a single payer system, a universal health care system in California? There is a measure that's been introduced by Senator Ricardo Lara from Long Beach, and we're going to be testing a lot of models. Taking it a step further, and not just California, could there be a regional health care system for California, Oregon, Washington together? These are very good questions that are making us sort of think larger and push the boundaries given the very difficult circumstances that we're in today. But I do believe strongly that, again, this issue on health care, it's a nonpartisan issue. You're Republican, you're Democrat, or you're agnostic, or points in between, or you're libertarian. It doesn't make a difference. Everyone should have health care, period. And what's mind-boggling to me, again, like repeal and replace, and Paul Ryan uses the words like flexibility. We want you as a consumer to have flexibility. Who doesn't want flexibility? I want flexibility in things. We want you to have the power to choose, so you as a consumer can have the choice. These are very powerful emotional words. What doesn't want choice? Who doesn't want to have the power to make their own decisions? But they fail to explain to you that if it's a junk insurance policy from out of state, Mississippi or Missouri or somewhere else, and then you finally you have ovarian cancer, stage 3 or 4, and then you show up, and all of a sudden your health care policy is not going to give you the coverage that you need, and you go into debt, and it's the number one reason for bankruptcy for so many families, is that they're playing with the lives and the livelihoods of millions of Americans. So watching the Republicans right now, not to get partisan, but watching the Republicans on the Hill right now is very fascinating, because there's a lot of moderates who are afraid and want to stay with ACA, although they don't want to say it up front. The folks from the Freedom Caucus who don't want to vote for the Paul Ryan, Donald Trump plan, well, I'm happy for them, but they're opposing it for all the wrong reasons, because they actually want to get rid of the health care mandates as well, too, mental health, for example. I never knew it was I never knew that it was unpatriotic to deny a child vision care and dental care, but that's what they would do. And it's incredible to me. So, again, these are all my own subjective, opinions, mine, Kevin DeLeon's, opinion, but we will be studying that right there. Next.
As someone who's not from the state of California, how can I convince lawmakers in my own state that protecting the environment is of utmost importance?
What state are you from?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin's I hear it's a great state. I hear you got a great university, University of Wisconsin, Madison. And unfortunately, we lost those electoral college votes that we needed for a state like Wisconsin. The example I use, I think, could have applied to some parts of Wisconsin as well, about folks in economic despair and what happens when politicians, show up selling snake oil. Because I don't believe that President Trump or the Republicans are going to be able to deliver on economic jobs. We have done so here in California. We have much more to do in California. More than happy to work with, legislators. We're engaging with other legislative bodies, Oregon, for example, Massachusetts, Connecticut, the state of Washington. I speak with my counterpart, the president of the Senate of Illinois, as well too. So more than happy to work with other folks, And we've debunked the myth, the narrative that, and I understand why the narrative is such a powerful one, and I get it. That if you want to grow an economy, if you want to put people to work, you have to burn fossil fuels. Because how many of our parents or grandparents worked at a factory, had a good union job, worked on an assembly line, and they burned fossil fuels? That's why we are the world's largest economy today, largely by burning fossil fuels. But we have scientists now, not folks coming with subjective agendas, but scientists now, Nobel Prize winners, to say this is not sustainable. You have to stop this, because if you don't, you're going to put the economy in peril. You're going to put the health outcomes of our children in peril. The Earth is going to be fine, by the way. The Earth will be fine. Earth has always been fine. Earth always works itself out somehow, some way. It's been through the Ice Age. It has been through all kinds of things. It is us, the ecosystem, that will not be fine. And we in California have been able, with bold steps, with strong progressive policies, been able to, when I said decouple and delink carbon from GDP, which means we have decreased our carbon output and we have increased our economy. So it's proof positive. It's not part of a white paper being presented by professors at Harvey, MIT, University of Chicago, Cal, UCLA, or Stanford, New York University, or Columbia, or MIT. Projections of what can happen. This is real. This is beyond the academic, realm and what's happening in real life. And when I talked about transportation electrification, this is another a move that we're doing, because I did it through my Senate Bill 350, where part of the challenges with an electric vehicle is that for many folks it's out of reach financially, and we don't have transportation electrification infrastructure. Bless you. For those who may own an electric vehicle, you may do so. I venture to say people, the average who own an EV, are people with very high educational attainment, so they make a very conscientious decision as to why they're buying an electric vehicle. Not everyone has the wherewithal, who buys an electric vehicle, but a lot of folks do. And if you have access to the greatest and latest and cleanest technologies, then that means that it only goes to those at the highest economic strata. So if we do that, and only people who live in Claremont or Pacific Palisades or Santa Monica or Palo Alto are the only ones who access the greatest, cleanest, and best technologies, then it becomes boutique-ish. If you want to meet your macro and global goals for carbon reduction, you have to democratize your climate change benefits, which means that technologies have to advance where the price point drops, and where we incentivize those at the lowest economic strata to also purchase, if you will, electric vehicles, and we have to make it available to them too. And that's why transportation electrification will be very, very critical. So all the days of range anxiety will be a thing of the past very, very soon. I think I can take a couple more questions.
And we have time for 2 more quick questions on this side.
Okay. For the state of California specifically, how much of an impact would you say that the cuts in the EPA are going to have upon the AQMD and the California EPA?
It's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. It's hard for me to tell right now, to quantify. I know that the president has made a 33% budget cut in his budget proposal. What survives in the Congress, I'm not sure. But it will have a devastating impact, because many folks ask me, with all the cuts looming on the horizon, if in fact they do come to fruition, and if the Congress does concur with the president, will you backfill these cuts? There's so much that we have, but I'll say this too, that about a week after the presidential election on November 8th, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not because of the election. I was supposed to be in Germany on Thursday, 2 days after the election, meeting with the ambassador, U.S. Ambassador John Emerson. with the ministers of the environment and the energy of Germany, I made a decision, a unilateral decision, to cancel my visits and stay here in California because I felt I needed to stay here. There was a upcoming conference, the Conference of Parties 22, United Nations, in Marrakesh, Morocco. I made the decision to go to Marrakesh, and I did. And what my message was to everyone, because everyone was asking me what happened, and my message was that irrespective of who occupies the White House, our resolve is stronger than ever, and our commitment is stronger than ever to reduce carbon and to move policies that will help us achieve our goals so we can have a cleaner environment, a healthier environment, and a stronger economy. So I can tell you this, that our resolve is stronger than ever. We're not going to regress. We're not going to go back, irrespective of what happens in Washington. What we'll be doing continuously is engaging in agreements with other subnational governments from other parts of the world, as well as MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings, with other nations. We currently have a Memorandum of Understanding with the Republic of Mexico, with Ottawa, as well as Quebec. We're linking our markets on the auction revenues through cap and trade. Although not perfect, things still need to be worked out. We are linking our markets. So this is not going to hold us back. We are moving forward with or without Washington. One more? Steve? One quick? Okay, all right, okay.
Great to hear you talking about the incentives for double pane windows. I did all that myself, put people to work. Also work for Tesla Energy in Solar City, so great to hear you talking about electric charging stations and everything. You mentioned the clean energy waiver. Not too familiar with that.
Air, not energy. It's a clean air.
Air,
waiver.
Okay. So do you see any Scott Pruitt actions or Donald Trump actions that could affect spontaneously like the solar industry that is?
It's a very good question. Solar energy, whether it's distributed generation, rooftop, or utility scale solar. And for those who may not know the difference, distributed generation is rooftop solar. So when you drive around, you see someone who has solar panels on top of their house. Utility scale generation of solar are the very, very large industrial panels that you see out in the desert, and that's generation that's on the grid, primarily for the utility companies, the investor-owned utilities, IOUs, as well as munis, MOUs, and perhaps CCAs now, committee choice aggregators as well. There is a tax credit at the federal level. I can see them rolling them back. I can see that happening to de-incentivize and try to freeze the market as much as possible. Be mindful, we've done these incredible advancements in California by using the market. So we've been using capitalism to actually grow the market and send the right market signals that have attracted the necessary capital to create the innovative technologies necessary, whether it's storage and other technologies that are looming on the horizon to meet our ambitious target goals. They can do a lot of damage. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. They can do a lot of damage because there is a very strong, special interest that wants to do everything within their power to thwart the renewable sector. They want us to stay wedded to legacy industries, the fossil fuel industry. We have made incredible gains, and so this will be highly political too. We got the science, we got the policies, but when we make these decisions are ultimately, they're political. They are ultimately political decisions. That's why political leadership is necessary. Elections have consequences. They have severe consequences, one way or the other. Someone may say everything that I'm saying, and I'm sure some folks may think that right now. What I'm just saying is just, a bunch of BS, and I can only give you what my opinions are, how I'm informed with my own decision making for California. Elections have consequences, and we were on a trajectory in California, in the country for that matter, a good trajectory to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, clean up the environment, and create jobs. we may have dark looming clouds on the near horizon, and we'll have to fight. So it will be a political battle, but we can't regress. And just because it's happening doesn't mean we, just retreat and fly the white flag and say we give up. Or we didn't wait to see the whites of their eyes. We just dropped the weapon and took off, running. We have to fight because we have a lot at stake in a state like California. Now, if I was saying all the things I was saying, and we're actually the 127th largest economy in the world, or the 87th largest economy in the world, then I would understand. This guy's saying a lot of things. Now, that doesn't also, let me say one thing too. It doesn't mean that there's a lot of things we still have to do here in California. We need to do transportation electrification. We need to do a lot more improvements in our public education system. We still have a lot more improvements to do. Flood protection, especially with atmospheric rivers, and we just took place with the Orville Dam. We have to deal with the Delta ecosystem in the Central Valley. There's a lot of things that we still have to do and improve on here in California. But, we've been on the right pathway. So it's my hope that they'll do as least damage as possible, but we're ready to fight, either in the courts, preemptive strikes through policies in the legislature, or through the people organizing. And I think by people organizing, that's why there's a lot of confusion in the Congress right now with the ACA. Some folks want to vote for it. Some Republicans now are scared to vote for it because retribution of the voters. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was an honor. Thank you very much. It's an honor, especially a school like Harvey Mudd. Thank you so much.